All right, we want to welcome you all into episode 30 today of Trojan Talk. I'm Zach Tarenko here with Cole Purvis and Jeff Cushbury. How you guys doing this morning?
Great.
It has been a while since we've had you with us. We had Isaac Edwards last 2 weeks, and you were doing our interviews, but now you are back, which is nice. And we will start off with the hot topic as the TA football team has fallen to under 500 win percentage since the early 2000s. If I'm correct, it was around 2005, 2004. That loss was a tough one. They lost 16-10. It was a good game. They played well, but just couldn't hold on in the end. Cole, you and I did that game. I think you were there for the first quarter, Jeff. So Cole, I want to ask you first. What did you see from TA in that game that wasn't really good? And are we? Is this time to be worried now as they're 1-2?
I don't think it's time to be worried because New Hampshire, Bedford, they're a very good team, and so is Oxford Hills. And you played the two best teams you're going to play all year in back-to-back weeks. And it's tough that you couldn't come away with either of those with a W. But I think you look at this team, and it might just potentially be a down year. And even a down year for the TA program is better than a lot of schools' up years, so that's good. But they don't have the same skill positions as last year. They have Xander Cantera and Carlos Ebeli, who are good receivers, but nothing like what they had last year with Brian and Anthony Jones and Isaiah. So it might be a down. Those guys really make the team go. They bring exciting plays, those spark plays, and they don't really have that as much this year. The defense has played well, though. The defense has been pretty strong against both Oxford Hills and Bedford, kind of shutting them down when it matters most in the second half, so that's good to see. And also the offensive line hasn't been great. Hayden Whitney hasn't had a very great last two games after going off against Scarborough in the first game, so the offensive line could be better. They're not running the football well on first and second down, so it's mainly the offense, and we'll see if they keep Ryan O'Keefe in for 100% of the snaps instead of just alternating drives, because it does seem like they move the ball better when he's in, and he's established a connection with Ebeli and Cantera, so we'll see how that plays out. But I don't think it's time to panic. They can still very easily win out and go to the state championship, and then you have another shot at Oxford Hills, who you were very close to beating.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting. First, the last time I remember them being under 500 at all was 2013 when they lost the first game of the year against South Portland. Okay. Andrew Libby blew out his knee that day. But 3 games into the year, it's been a very long time since they were under 500. Usually if they lose the first game, they'll win the next couple. So it just says a lot about the program that this is the first time it's happened in such a long time. And this is just such a bizarre year. So as Cole said, they lost a lot. Skill kids aren't as great as they used to be. The offensive line, I think, is the biggest problem on the whole team. As we saw with the safety, we had a couple chances on Saturday, and the line just couldn't hold up. And it's really about consistency. There's some drives where the line looks great, other times just not. So that's something I know Coach Tabor's, they're all working hard on it. It's not a secret out there that they need to fix that. It's just a bizarre year because we're not really going to know anything more about this team until the state championship. They should run the table the rest of the way against the likes of Sanford, Sanford, Skowhegan. They play Kennebunk this week. It doesn't look so great. Even Bonnie Eagle, they don't look great at all this year, as they lost to Scarborough, who we shut out. So, you really could just easily run the table here. You're not going to learn too much. The skill kids, it'll be good for confidence. And then the first round of the playoffs, whoever they play, this year there's only 6 teams to make the playoffs, so they'll get a bye. So, and they'll probably end up playing at Bonnie Eagle again because they'll probably finish number 2. So it's really tough. It's gonna be really difficult to judge what this team is for the next 9 weeks, and that's kind of the negative about having your 2 biggest games at the beginning of the year. Yeah. It's good to have an early test, but usually those early tests, will they remember week 2 and 3 where they lost when it's November? Now it's going to be really difficult. So, it just shows again. It shows the lack of strength in Class A. Whereas if this TA team was 2014, 2015, they'd probably be a 500 team, just the way that they've played so far and just the overall on-paper talent level. But with basically them and Oxford Hills being the only decent teams in Class A now, they're still going to have to work hard to win a state championship, and you can't take anything for granted, but they should honestly waltz to a state championship game. Yeah. Then anything can happen there. So, but not time to be worried. It's just kind of a bummer that the 2 big games had to happen early.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think, as you said, there are a lot of chances for TA to win that game versus Bedford, but they just couldn't hold on. And obviously it's tough. I know that last year They had a lot of seniors playing offensive and defensive line, and they even had guys like now who are all-time stars are like guys like Jack Brochu and Matt Kimball. And last year they were playing like nose tackle, and they were almost substitutes for some of the offensive players to get some breaks, and they're basically on the field the entire game, so they don't have much break to stop and stretch their legs or whatever. So it was tough, especially at the end of that game when O'Keefe was under a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
but
and this is definitely the low point of the season. Like next week we'll come back and we'll be talking about them more positively, hopefully. Yeah. So they'll get better.
It was a great shout out to JP Bias with a great onside kick, by the way, on the safety free kick. I mean, I was talking to Coach Pulsiver, and he said that he does that in practice all the time. Like just has that knack for hitting onside kicks. Hopefully we don't need to use any more onside kicks this year, but if we do, then we know it's possible.
Yeah, as Cole said, and as you said earlier, Jeff, I think it's looking forward to the next few weeks to see TA back in a more positive light. But now we'll talk about some girls soccer who yesterday tied 0-0. I didn't know that they were allowing draws, but they tied Sanford 0-0 yesterday. But before that, had a 4-game win streak, and were doing a really good job versus their opponents after an early loss to Marshwood. I wanted to ask just quick thoughts for you guys. You know, this is a really good girls soccer team. Class A's definitely got a little bit less competitive last year as some of the teams who were in the state championship level, like Scarborough and Wyndham, both lost a lot of seniors. Do you think that the girls soccer team has a good chance at a state title this year?
I'm still saying to be determined. I was just pulling up the standings here and just seeing who Thornton Academy's beat. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be difficult. I mean, the thing is with TAs, we heard last week from a couple of the captains there, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries, and if you look, it's very top heavy. So you look at Thornton Academy right now is 5th at 4-1, but they're in 5th place at 4-1 because ahead of them are Sanford at 4-1, Marshwood, Scarborough, and Gorham are all undefeated. Yep. Now those teams haven't played each other, so things could change. But I think you're really seeing the haves and the have-nots because you look at the bottom, it's like 0-6, 1-4, 1-5, 1-5, 1-4, 1-4, 2-4. So the Class A teams are, they've been a lot of top versus bottom matchups, and I don't think Class A's done that great against the B teams that they've crossed over with. So it's still way too early for that. Now, are they going to be a playoff team? Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say. But they've had to move so many players around that it's really difficult to say. If you look at Thornton Academy's upcoming schedule, and they play Falmouth, they play Wyndham, they play Westbrook, and Scarborough. I mean, those 4 games, if they come out and they win 3 out of 4 of those games, all those games are on the road, by the way. They don't play another home game until October 8th. Then we really, I mean, look at their last 3 or 4 games have been at home. So they've had a pretty favorable home schedule, and they've played the likes of Bedford, Bonnie Eagle, and Kennebunk, who are all either winless or only 1 win. So I say cautious optimism, and I think Coach Charlin will probably say the same thing. It's like, yeah, you want to be 4-1, 4-1-1, I guess is what they are. But state championship talk is a little early for that.
Cole, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think they have a good young team, and hopefully they can keep riding this wave. But I don't know. It sounds like Class A is pretty strong at the top, so I think a state championship might be a little bit out of reach, but we'll see. They definitely seem to play well so far early in the season.
It's good they're scoring goals. I mean, that's the thing. It's like if you're only beating these poor teams 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1 or something, that it doesn't bode well, because that's been the problem I think for TA in the past is. Especially some of those games against Wyndham back in the mid-2010s when they were always going to regionals or regional finals, just getting those big goals in the big games. And if they can get some confidence early, then and Sarah Rich obviously is a big part of that too, and she scored some good ones this year.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at the boys soccer team, it's pretty similar. They lost their first 2 games this season to Marshwood and South Portland, and then have had 4 straight wins. One of the stats that I was seeing, because I've kept track of the goals and who's scoring the games, 14 of TA's 19 goals in their first 6 games have come from international players on the team, specifically Vasco Malero, Joao Pavai, and Lorenzo Vitti. I just want to ask real quick, do you think that the international players are I wouldn't say maybe not the backbone, but we'll call it that for now, the backbone of this team? There's guys like Jeremiah Gomez and Harris Stoddard, obviously good players, but is the international kids who come and play on this team the backbone of this program?
You can't say the backbone. I would say it's so difficult because, of all the international students that we have, boys soccer and boys tennis are the 2 that have the most. And it's just such a different, you can't really compare the 2 because boys tennis it's a team sport, but it's also a solo sport. I mean, you're playing by yourself. Whereas soccer, it's so important to integrate everybody. I mean, No, they're not the backbone, but the amount of playing time that they get every year just shows how quality some of the players are.
Yep.
And it's very difficult because I know a lot of the dorm students. It's so I have a different perspective, and I understand where they're coming from. I know there's a lot of turnover. There's maybe 15 or 20 boys that actually try out, and then by the end of the year, there's maybe only 8 or 10 that are playing, whether it's JV or varsity. No, I think if you talk to Coach Carlson and anybody else, the backbone has to be the guys who've been in the program for a long time.
Yep.
And I understand it's a really difficult balance of wanting to put the best players on the field, the best team, and also rewarding the guys who have played for you for a long time. Because I would say though, of boys soccer, there have been some players in the past who you've seen them go to other sports for a variety of reasons, not just for one reason. They've gone to play football, they've gone to just do full-time basketball or full-time lacrosse or whatever. So it's a really difficult balancing act for Coach Carlson. I totally understand that. But when you get an influx of 10 players from countries like Spain, Brazil, Mexico every year, and they're coming just from a natural, these guys play soccer from the age of 3 or 4, and that's all they play. And not saying all of them are superstars, but it's so difficult to deny that kind of talent. So you see some years are different than others. I mean, I would say most years is 2 or 3 impactful starting players that are international on the boys soccer team. This year seems to be more in terms of especially their entire attack basically. So it's a very complex question. It's too bad because I feel like if some of these international students stayed for 2 or 3 years, that it'd be much easier to build a cohesive team, and this team could win a state championship with the amount of talent, both from the international and from the local population. But every year it's like throwing a new mix of ingredients in the blender and hoping you get some kind of nice shake at the end of the year. But it's nice to see like Jeremiah Gomez, who we're going to talk to here shortly, is one of the star players, and I would say he is the backbone of the team this year. Yeah.
Well, you just said it. We are now going to have our interview for this episode with Jeremiah Gomez. So we want to welcome in Jeremiah Gomez of the TA soccer team, one of the captains this year, coming in for an interview. First, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Zach. How are you?
I'm doing great. So the first question I got for you today is, what is it like being one of the senior captains of the boys' varsity soccer team this year?
To be honest with you, I think it's great. It's awesome. Being able to lead out the boys to a game, even we win or we lose. Being able to represent the school at that kind of holding that badge kind of means a lot. So I'm really excited to be able to lead this team.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys started the season 0-2, but right now on a 4-game win streak. How do you guys keep winning your games and keep that momentum going throughout your wins?
Like a lot of teams, motivation, really. We have a lot of belief. We have a lot of guys that are skilled and can perform what we need them to do. So, going into a game on Friday against Falmouth is going to be an important one where we need to pick up a win and make it a 5-game win streak and just keep on going from there.
Yeah. So I know personally, and I bet some people listening know, that you are a midfielder, so I got a little fun question for you.
Okay.
If you were forced to play either as a forward or a defensive player, which one would you pick and why?
Okay, interesting fact. So from the age of, I would say 4 to 10, I played as a center back.
Really?
And then, so now I play center mid, and last year for the school I played forward for about 11 games.
Really?
So, but if I had to pick between the two, I'd have to say forward because there's a lot less defensive work to do.
Yeah.
And I don't like tracking back, so.
That's nice. All right, so this is, if anybody has watched our last broadcast, Jerry had a beautiful free kick goal that went in the top corner, and I know you're very good at free kicks. If people don't know, I've played with Jerry on a travel team before. So I want to ask you, how would you describe the perfect free kick or taking the perfect free kick?
For me, it's about if I feel it, it's gonna go into the back of the net.
Really?
If I don't feel it, a game against Sanford, I had a free kick pretty much right on the edge of the box, and it was raining, it was cold, it was wet. And I was like, it's not going in, and it didn't go in. So, but against Kennebunk, I scored 2 free kicks, but those ones I knew they were gonna go in, and they did. So
yeah, that's cool. Looking forward for the rest of the season, is there a certain game or maybe a certain event that you're doing with your team that you're looking forward to?
Oh, it has to be Gorham.
Yep.
They last year during the regular season killed us 6-0. And then we had them in the playoffs and they beat us by a goal. And so yeah, I want to go back there and like show them what we got. It's a new year, brand new team. So
yeah, it'll definitely be a good game.
it will be.
Yeah. Well, that is going to do it for the interview. We want to thank Jerry again for coming in for the interview.
Thank you.
We want to thank Jeremiah for coming in for that interview, and we'll wrap up the TA Talk with just looking at our streaming schedule this Friday, September 23rd. We have a boys soccer game at home versus Falmouth at 4:30, and this weekend we are still trying to figure out what we have going. I think there is a girls field hockey game slated up for around 7:15. I'm not sure who they're playing right off the top of my head. But we also may be going to Waterhouse Field, or as you were calling it the other day, Fenway Park. It's a little inside joke there. But for a boys football matchup, it just depends on whether or not we can get internet or the permission to film there. So we'll keep you updated on that. But definitely the boys soccer game on Friday, the 23rd, versus Falmouth.
That should be a good challenge for the boys.
Yeah, it will. So we'll talk about some NFL now. We are 2 weeks into this season, and I know every year is always different, but this one seemed a little bit more crazier than the last few. A lot of comebacks, wins this week, and some injuries as well, and some teams not playing as well as they should have. So we'll start it off real quick. I just want to ask, which comeback game do you think was the best? So the three I put up here are the Dolphins coming back against the Ravens, the Cardinals coming back against the Raiders, or the Jets beating the Browns. Which one do you think is the
Well, first off, you say it looks a little bit crazier than other years. I don't know. I think the NFL is just awesome all the time. That's what people say, oh, this draft is better than the last couple of years. Oh, this free agency is the best ever. I think the NFL is just awesome all the time. That's just how it works.
You said that about the NBA, though, too. Remember? Do we have a fight about that on the air? About how the NBA was the best, basically the best of all time. But anyway, go for it.
it depends on the season.
I didn't want any of these three teams to win, so I wasn't really a big fan of the comeback, but the Dolphins' comeback was definitely the most entertaining, and I got to give Tua his props. I'm not ready to crown him as amazing after 2 weeks into the season, but he's looked good, and they've lived up to the hype so far. McDaniels had a good start. I'm still a little bit skeptical of this team going forward. I think there could be a second half collapse, but they've still had a great start to the season, and the Patriots got a win, which is awesome. They really grinded one out in Pittsburgh. That's what you got to do against a team that you're kind of evenly matched with, and I thought they played very well on both sides of the ball. So yeah, and then Trey Lance gets hurt. He's out for the season with a broken ankle, and just like that, Jimmy Garoppolo, after everything that happened all summer, is going to be the starter for this team. I still don't understand why they traded up for Trey Lance when they have a Super Bowl ready team right now. And let's say Jimmy G takes him deep into the playoffs this year. What are they going to do next year? Bring Trey Lance back in? And like, they lost to the Bears last week. It's just a very interesting scenario, and I'm pretty puzzled as to why Kyle Shanahan is doing what he's doing, but we'll see how far Jimmy G takes them.
It's really interesting the way that you phrase this question. You're very optimistic, because every other sports show that talks said which choke was worse, not which comeback was best.
Yeah.
Which choke was worst was by far the Browns.
Yep.
Like, you can't let that happen to the Jets. It was something like 2,500 games in that situation in the last 50 years, and every up by 13 points with a minute 50 to go, and every team had won until then.
The stat was what, that if Nick Chubb wouldn't have gotten that touchdown and need the ball, they would have won the game. So
which comeback was the best? I think it was. The Dolphins was impressive. It's definitely the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Because just watching the end of that game, it's like Kyler Murray was a cheat code. Like, it just was like, I don't know, when they play like that, it's like, how do they ever not score? And it frustrates me because I'm not a huge Kyler Murray fan long term. I still don't think he's going to be a long term NFL quarterback. But it's like every fourth down, he's like, he just ran around. And it's like, a lot of people see, that's why I don't think that was the worst choke, because offensively, maybe the Raiders should have scored some more points or whatever. But you watch those two plays that he made on the fourth down and on the 2-point conversion. What can you do? He's so fast. It was just insane. So I would say that comeback was the best because it took more miraculous plays. Because I feel like that was less of a choke and more of just a ridiculous comeback. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think the Dolphins played obviously well, but the Ravens just letting Tyreek Hill getting behind you is original sin. And obviously the Browns just choking that one away. So I would say that that comeback was the best by the Cardinals. But I think and I think both the Ravens and the Raiders can still rebound. Because I think the Raiders especially, because I think the Broncos look awful. So I'm not as worried about them.
And the one thing I got to say to Cole is that I disagree with the evenly matched part about the Pats versus Steelers. I think they shouldn't have been evenly matched, especially with T.J. Watt out. So I think the win isn't as impressive as some people are saying because it was so close. And I think the Patriots had a lot of chances to take away with that game.
I mean, Pittsburgh's terrible. Without T.J. Watt and with that quarterback, they are horrible. They are a bottom third team in the league. So it was kind of a no-win for the Patriots. Like, you had to win the game because of how poorly played last week and what your schedule was like coming ahead. Yep. But they didn't look good. I mean, if not for that kind of a dumb rule that on Miles Bryant, not being a safety early on in the game, and then obviously Gunnar Olszewski just gifting away a touchdown. That's a totally different game. So I look at that Patriots win like, okay, well, I'm glad you didn't lose, but I think they're going to get smoked on Sunday.
Yeah,
against the Ravens, and they're going to be 1-3 pretty quickly here.
I see what you're saying, but it was loud and it was all doom and gloom around their organization the last week after the loss to the Dolphins. So just a win is good. But yeah, I do see what you're saying. We play the Ravens this week, who choked last week, so I'm sure they'll be motivated and ready to go.
The biggest concern right now is Mac. He looks terrible.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's his fault or if it's this whole uncertainty about the offense, but he was one of the reasons they almost lost the game. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's a second-year player. It's only week 2, but he's physically he's skinnier. Everybody's saying that, but his arm strength does not look improved. Like, you need to take big steps. He was never going to be the big physical guy. And you mentioned Trey Lance, and the reason that all these teams are getting rid of guys like Jimmy Garoppolo and eventually guys like Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins and going for the home run balls of guys like Mahomes, that kind of body type, is because that's how they feel they can win long term in the NFL. Is that true? I don't know. I mean, Brady's an outlier, obviously, and I'm not ready to put Burrow in that category yet, saying like, well, they went to a Super Bowl, so you should get a quarterback like that. I mean, we already seen this year. It's not obvious. So it's tough being a Patriots fan this year and really kind of looking week by week and just trying to enjoy the games instead of being like, oh, wow, we got to win against Pittsburgh. Okay, well, that gets us in this. No, we're not going to win the division. That's already over because the Bills look ridiculous. Oh, yeah. And the wild card is going to be lucky. I mean, we're going to have to really win some games that right now it looks like we shouldn't.
Yeah. Well,
I'm going to the game on Sunday, so hopefully they keep it close. Nice. It's the only game I'm going to at Gillette this year. So.
Nice. Well, we will keeping it with the NFL. I have a little segment here. So I have it's called "Who's a Better Receiver?" And so I'm going to name 2 receivers, and I want one sentence about which one. Tell me which one you think is better, and then one sentence as to why you think they're better. So we'll start off with Justin Jefferson or Jalen Waddle.
Very easily Jefferson. That's the easiest one on the list. It should be Jefferson or Jamar Chase. I think that's a little bit closer, but Jefferson's had better production with Kirk Cousins and a defensive coach up until now, and now he's got an offensive coach, and he's going to explode even more.
Justin Jefferson. I mean, Waddle, a little incomplete. We don't know yet. He's still a little younger, but Jefferson seems like he can. And I'm with Thielen not being that great of a threat anymore, and see Jefferson as the number 1 guy. I've been impressed, so I'd say Justin Jefferson.
Next one is Tyreek Hill or Stephon Diggs.
I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill. I think the speed just breaks the game. Like that touchdown last year versus the Bills with a minute to go. Nobody else is scoring on that play. And Diggs has the best quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. And Diggs is great, but I think Tyreek Hill is the most unique receiver in the NFL by far.
I'm going to go Diggs by a hair. I understand everything you just said, and I agree. He is unique. That's the thing about Hill. But if you go just overall skills, what I see from Stephon Diggs is that's who I'd want on my team, because Hill, he can. Here's the thing. I think Hill has more boom or bust potential. Like he can have unbelievable games, but we've seen him against the Patriots. Most of his games the last 4 or 5 years, the Patriots have been able to shut him down. Yep. There are ways that you can shut down Tyreek Hill, especially double covering and keeping, it's when you don't cover him. Now the Bills game, that was crazy. But like you watch against the Dolphins, he literally just ran by the defense because they let him go. So whereas I think Diggs is a little bit harder of a matchup to try to get him down. So I would say Diggs by a hair. I'd love to have either of them though.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jeff, on that one. I think that one's a close one though. I think Diggs has a better connection with Allen than Hill does with Tua, although I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because he just started playing with Tua. Mm-hmm. But the next one is A.J. Brown or Michael Pittman Jr.
So Michael Pittman Jr. doesn't look the part. Obviously, A.J. Brown is huge, and Pittman a little bit more skinny, but people need to give him credit. He's one of the best jump ball receivers in the NFL, and he's had some great production. But I feel like with Pittman, it's a lot of projecting. People are just kind of assuming that he's going to have a breakout year, and he's been pretty good, but it's a lot more projecting with Pittman, and we've seen it with A.J. Brown, and Brown's just been a little bit better. I'm not ready to crown Pittman as better than A.J. Brown yet, and I love Pittman. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. He's got a great YouTube channel, but A.J. Brown's better.
I'm going to have to say Brown because I don't really know much about Pittman. Honestly,
Really?
The only time I've ever really been exposed to him is on fantasy. Like when I played him in fantasy. But the problem is I had A.J. Brown last year, and he was absolutely atrocious on my fantasy team. So I'm tempted to say Pittman just out of spite. But Brown, I think it's incomplete for me. I can't really say until I see Pittman a little bit more.
That's the thing. A.J. Brown's just a little bit better known. Pittman's kind of an unknown around the NFL if you're not a huge fan.
Yeah,
I know he plays for it, but if he walked in the door right now, I wouldn't know what he looked like.
Yeah, I think Brown had a good first 2 weeks with
he could be, yeah.
with
I mean,
Hurts,
I think Brown has showed he's got the skills. It's a matter of can he be consistent about it.
Yeah. And the last one, I tried to save the hardest one for the last one. Cooper Kupp or Devante Adams.
This one's obviously close, and I think a lot of people would disagree, but I'm going to go with Devante Adams because I think Cooper Kupp is a little bit more scheme-dependent with Sean McVay, whereas Devante Adams was unbelievable in Green Bay, and then he's already off to a good start with the Raiders. Cooper Kupp, he didn't have a great, he wasn't a superstar until last year, and I think obviously he's unbelievable, but a little bit scheme dependent. I think if Cooper Kupp goes to the Raiders, he's not as good as Devante Adams. Adams is a better pure route runner, better catcher of the football, just slightly Adams, but obviously Kupp is unbelievable.
I'm gonna go slightly Kupp. Again, Adams is a stud, but that's a really tough choice. I don't know. I just feel like Kupp maybe a little more dynamic. Adams is good, obviously really good on the jump ball. But we've seen already this year that he can be limited a little bit, and he had Aaron. It's tough because he had Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, for a few years. So very tough. I'll go slightly Kupp.
Okay.
Slightly.
I'm with Cole. I think Devante Adams just slightly, but it is both really good. I think we should just say that both of those guys are really good.
Yeah.
And we'll finish up this episode with our first Pick the Winners week. I know last year, Jeff, you pulled it out, the win out in the
clutch.
Yep, in the clutch. But the first matchup I have for this week is the Bills at the Miami Dolphins.
Bills
by 21.
I say
they're
Bills.
a juggernaut. They may go undefeated this year.
Oh yeah.
I say
sure.
Bills. But I don't know if I'll say by 21.
They are so.
Where's
good.
it at? Is that Miami?
It's at Miami.
Still Bills.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're so good.
The next one I have here is the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Los Angeles Chargers. But now remember, Herbert may or may not play, and even if he does, he may not be in full health.
I mean, the Chargers might have the best roster in the NFL. I'm going with the Chargers.
I'm going to go with the Chargers as well. Even though Jacksonville looked decent, I don't know if it was how good they were or just how bad the Colts are in the end. Frank Reich could be fired this season.
I'm going to say with the Chargers. I was hoping I could get one of you to pick Jacksonville.
Not yet.
Then we have the Rams at the Cardinals.
Give me the Rams.
I'm going to go Cardinals. I think the Rams have some fatal flaws.
Yeah,
They almost blew it against Atlanta, and they had no reason to. I think that Super Bowl hangover thing is real. I think they'll be good, but I think the Cardinals I think the Cardinals, as usual, are going to peak early on.
Yep.
I think they'll be buoyed by that win, and the fact they're playing at home, I'll give them that. Not for the division, but for today, I'll go Cards.
I'm going to go Cardinals as well. And the last one, I try to pick one that I think no one really cares about. The Cowboys at the Giants.
G-Men. Cowboys, the Cowboys got lucky last week. G-Men, Dayball, he's got that team. I don't think they're great, but I think G-Men in a very typical 17-14 NFC East matchup.
Yeah.
I think things might be too good to be true for the Giants. I think they're too not good enough to start off 3-0. I think Cooper Rush and Cowboys pull out.
By the way, did you see, just a quick thing as we finish up, did you see the stupid quote by Beckham? Odell Beckham says he'll consider come back to the Giants if they bench Daniel Jones or release him.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So difficult.
I'm going to go Giants, and I just can't believe that I think that they're going to go 3-0 to start a season.
Yeah.
But
they'll be the biggest fraud 3-0 team in the history of the NFL,
for sure.
but
yes.
good for them.
Yep. All right. Well, those are some good picks for the first week, and that's going to do it for the 30th episode of Trojan Talk. I want to thank you all for watching, and we will see you all next week.